are very pleased and very happy to now be under the leadership of our now permanent director, Rod Smart, assisted by Monica Rogers, and going back to the music that I used to listen to playing out of my car while I was taking batting practice the 1 year I attended IVC, Bachman Turner Overdrive. You haven't seen anything yet out of your foundation. The great things are going to happen. And just a moment for the other inductees. And I'm very pleased to be here to celebrate with Shirley and Zen, who've touched my life through my time in high school and beyond. And to Steve and all of the enjoyment we've had as coach, friend, and occasional drink at the Planters, maybe, I don't know. And then, of course, one of my very best friends, Glenn Crowson. Now, what do I say? Except that I'll start off by saying that standing in an event like this, maybe out there socializing with friends, especially if their wives were with them, the pure mention that I had a story from Glenn Crowson would immediately clear the room. Nobody wanted to hang around for that. And about now, Steve Cato's getting a little emergency text like he's got to get up and leave because he's got to go talk to somebody. Yeah. I'll quote Glenn when we told him about this honor, that his time at IVC was the best 4 years of his life. And how long ago was that? Well, 2 of those 4 years, he played on the football team for the IVC Arabs. That's how long ago that was. Think about that. We haven't had football in a very long time at IVC. Graduated from IVC. While working and raising a family, went on to graduate from San Diego State. You saw a picture up here earlier. Became a police officer in the Brawley Police Department. He moved on to be the second, I believe, director of then it was the Boys Club, which became the Boys and Girls Club, touching a lot of lives of a lot of the kids who came through the early club. And then after being the executive director, moving on to the Brawley Parks and Recreation, touching a lot of lives of young boys and girls who went through the program. He then went on to the Boys Club Board of Directors, and each year at the annual auction, you could see him out there stretching and getting that extra dollar that J.R. Boone was, helping him promote as a spotter. And one of the other things that he did as a director of the Boys Club, when they looked to Glenn and said, we need some newer, younger blood, I guess I was one of those suckers, and he grabbed me and took me in, and that's how I became, at least for a few years, a part of the boys, and then it became the Boys and Girls Club. From Glenn's position here at the City of Brawley with the Parks and Recreation Department, then moving on to really be the assistant manager, his managerial and the municipality's call came to take him away from Brawley. And from Evans, Colorado to Needles, California, to Desert Hot Springs, to the community district in Thermal, managing all of that. From time to time, he was asked to come back to help fix some things in the city of Brawley. Of course, each time he came back, he would call and my wife would say, he's not here. You can't come over. Through all of that time, Glenn did a lot of special things, including, I remember he drugged me to a meeting about bringing in the Special Olympics and doing something very special for the kids of our valley. And so early in his career, from IVC on to San Diego State University, and his touch with the kids, he did a lot of things. And then he wrote this book. Now, for those of you who were born and raised in the valley, I would say that you probably, once you were reminded of the event, will have a very vivid imagination about the change of our community with the abduction and unfortunate murder of Brenda Sue Sayers. I remember very clearly as a kid following that. Of course, my parents, shared some of that. Newspapers sitting, out on the coffee table, but mostly listening to the updates on KROP radio about how things were progressing. What was the latest information? What was new? And I'll never forget, and I think it was on a weekend, and my father was building the bunk beds in our bedroom, and his former partner, Ray Wilson, happened to be over at the house, and the bulletin, the announcement over the radio that they had found Brenda Sue Sayers. Now, what's so significant about that? It's a part of our history. But really what Glenn did is he really told, because it's a bestseller book that's been now distributed and sold throughout the world, about our life here in not just Brawley, but Imperial County. And that event changed things, but everything has changed. And it really told a story about how this community and how we enjoy it and how it lives and how we raise our children and the luxuries of sense of community that we have. It really told that story to the rest of the world about our valley, our town, the way we live and raise our children. It changed. It changed significantly. But today, we still, compared to the rest of the world, enjoy those sense of family luxuries in growing up in a small community like ours. That's his contribution. That's why he deserves to be in this very prestigious Hall of Fame. So on behalf of Imperial Valley College and my fellow board members of the IVC Foundation, please join me in welcoming to the IVC Hall of Fame, Glenn Crowson.
Especially being inducted with my good friend Steve, and looking at the past list of inductees. I remember as a young boy at Ruth Reed School, I used to sleep over at Randy Palomino's house. In fact, later on, there's a few nights I slept over at Steve Cato's house. I can't remember if I ever slept over at Shirley Jones's house. I didn't hear it in the introduction, so I guess it didn't happen. I wish my parents had been here to see this. My parents immigrated to Brawley from the old country, Oklahoma, and they were hardworking people that taught me the right from wrong. And I went to Ruth Reed School, as I said. I came home one day and I asked my dad, I said, hey, that teacher down there called me an Okie. And am I an Okie? And my dad says, of course not. You weren't born in Oklahoma. You're a prune picker. So that made me feel better the rest of my life. I wasn't an Okie, I was a prune picker. And I can assure you, I met a lot of people here tonight, and there's a bunch of prune pickers here in this room also. Again, I'm just humbled by this experience, and if you bear with me, I just want to introduce my family that made it possible for me to get through this, and they helped me with my book, they helped me with my career, they understood when I came home and said, we're moving, and we'd all load everything into a moving van and move somewhere across state or across the country, and I appreciate them very much. And I'd like to introduce first my oldest daughter, Rachel Close, and her daughter, Jenny, who is my other granddaughter, is back in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But I would like to introduce Jenny. Hello, Jenny. We worked out a system there, and it didn't work out, but it's pretty good. So I'll have Dubose still give you $1. And Rachel is a chemical engineer in Sioux Falls. She makes ethanol. My son, Ben, where's Ben? And he lives in Palm Springs. He owns a businessman in Palm Springs, and Ben is kind of like the mini-me, so to speak, of the Crowson family. And I want to thank Ben also. My youngest daughter, Gretchen.
Thank you.
And Gretchen is, her husband is here, Garrett. And my youngest granddaughter, Giada, baby G as we call her. Hello, baby G. She's not quite old enough to wave back. Save me a couple of bucks there. And then I also want to introduce the person that I've been with for a long time. And it's not Tom Dubose. It's my wife, Linda.
Woo!
When I was a policeman in 1969, I was a policeman for the city of Brawley. And our duty, as we self-appointed ourselves, was to drive by the schools and see what new teachers had been hired by the school district and to see if we could be of any assistance to them. And one day I drove by and there was this little sports car parked out there in front of the school, and a little blonde was getting out of the car, and I drove up behind her and told her that, excuse me, but you're in partially in a red zone. You can't park there. And she looked and she said, only a little bit. She was just imported from the old country, Texas. And she had Texas plates on the car, and I proceeded to write her a parking ticket in order to get her name and address and phone number. A couple of months later, we were married. I found out that her dad worked for Lipton Tea out of Houston. She owned a Porsche car. And she went to that exclusive school called SMU. And it ain't cheap. So I figured, this is my life right here. Well, we got married, and a few months later, I found out that that car had a bunch of payments due on it. She still had a student loan at SMU. And her dad stapled the tea bags together as they came down the aisle. He wasn't an executive at all. Well, that was about 47 years ago. And stand up, Linda, please. And Linda, stand up. Oh, she is standing. She's been with me and supportive of me for a long time, ups and downs, ins and outs. And she's my best friend. She was a little disappointed when they came. They wanted to find these photos, old photos. So my children came to me and said, "We're putting a scrapbook together for Giada, my little youngest granddaughter, and we need pictures of you and Linda when you were in college and that kind of stuff. And when they came and picked them up, and we thought that was a good issue. We didn't know that they were lying. And when they came to pick up the pictures, Linda gave them one photo of me and about 50 photos of herself. So I'm sure she's disappointed that her picture wasn't on there. But living with me for 47 years, that's not her first disappointment, I can assure you. I did, one of the things that I was very proud of when I worked for the city of Brawley was I had a great mentor named Walker Ritter, and he told me, he said, never miss a city council meeting. He said, because you never know what they're gonna do if you're not there. And so I started going to every city council meeting. That's twice a month. If you've ever been to a council meeting, or you've ever served on a city council, you know that that's a long time, twice every month. And I went to every council meeting, never missed a council meeting. I became a city manager in 3 other cities and never missed a council meeting. And I always felt that no telling what's gonna happen if I didn't show up. That council, they'd go off on their own. And my last city was Desert Hot Springs, and I finally missed a meeting. I had the stomach flu real bad, and I finally missed a meeting. And the next day I got a note from the city clerk telling me that the city council wishes me a speedy recovery, and they hope that I get well soon by a vote of 3-2. And I think that's about the time I decided that I could write a book rather than serve on the city council. I serve as a city manager. And the last thing I want to tell you is that when I wrote this book, and I've got a couple of other books since then, but when I wrote the book about Brenda Sayers, it was an extremely difficult thing to do, to research an incident that occurred 50 years ago with the families, the police, everybody. And I could not have done it without 3 or 4 institutions that just helped me out tremendously. One of them was the Brawley Library. What an asset you have there. The other was the El Centro Library. The El Centro Library was in the process of rebuilding, but they bent over backwards to help me research that crime. And the IVC Library was tremendous for me. They helped me, they kept in contact with me, and I couldn't have done it without those 3 libraries and the Pioneers Museum. I found stuff at the Pioneers Museum stacked away in dusty boxes that they didn't even know they had, but they were very generous in allowing me to go through and research that area. And I'm very pleased about it. And I was gonna ask somebody that's associated with IVC, in coming down here today, I went to my bookcase and we were getting some books to donate to the local library in Desert Hot Springs, and I found 3 books that I checked out at IVC in 1969. I need a what do they call it, amnesty day or something. I'll send those down to you. I'm not even going to tell you what the name of the books were. But I am humble, and I thank my family. I thank the IVC Foundation. I thank Tom Dubose. Thank you all very, very much. Goodbye.